we don't really care about money. We care about impact.
Today's guest, Joost, bootstrapped his business and grew it to 12 million websites that use their flagship product, Yoast SEO.
We didn't take investment at Yoast, and I will not tell you that everyone should take an investment.
Joost and his wife Marieke exited the company, which set them on a new, exciting path into the world of investing with their company, Amelia Capital.
If you are just in it to make a certain amount of money, that's fine, but then probably don't take investment from anyone.
In this episode, we're going to jump into how much you could expect to raise from an early funding round.
200,000 in revenue a year is probably not enough to take like meaningful investment.
Why you might want to raise capital from investors like Yoast.
What I think is actually the most important thing is that you... I'm not saying we're doing this perfectly all the time.
Yoast, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Yoast SEO, you grew it to 140 people, 12 million websites were using the regular Yoast plugin, which is incredible. You've exited, and now you are an investor in software products. Why? I guess just genuinely, like, why do that? I think a lot of people who listen to the show are software creators, and there is no end to that journey for, I think, a lot of these people. So why end that journey and start a new one?
First of all, I didn't end it. I'm releasing new product, and I don't think I'll ever really stop creating stuff. But I've fallen into the trap of thinking I know better, and I can, and Marieke can help other companies grow faster, better, more, while doing meaningful stuff. So we don't just invest in products. We only want to invest in things that we think actually does something more for the world than just make money. And we think we can help those companies. We've obviously done fairly well with Yoast. For a while, we thought that was an accident. And as you help more companies, you realize, no, it's not an accident. There's actually quite a few things that we've done right that we can help other people replicate. There's also things that we did wrong that we can help other people prevent themselves from doing.
That's where I'm an expert. I've done everything wrong.
It's the only way to learn, man.
I can point out all... I think other people learn in other ways. I definitely only learn through mistakes.
We've definitely made a ton of mistakes at Yoast, and I think we can help people with that experience. But we can also show them like, hey, we did this and that worked, and you can make these changes and that'll really work. And I think that's very valuable. And then on top of that, we made a good amount of money when we sold Yoast, and we want to bring some of that back into the WordPress ecosystem, because that's how we think it's supposed to work. You have to reinvest back into what made you rich.
Yes, I love that. I remember seeing your WordCamp Europe talk in.
Yeah, that was in Leiden.
Yeah, but. So I saw a talk from you 10 years ago, and that lines up with what you're saying now about reinvesting.
Hey, I'm consistent. You can't.
Consistent. Yeah.
I truly believe in open source. And I also truly believe that we need to build business models around open source to make this ecosystem work.
I like that. Let me actually ask, when I think of investor, I think of people who only care about returns. Is investor the right word?
Well, the thing is, I want those companies to make money because if you you've seen that talk on the Victory of the Commons, and if you haven't, I urge you to go and watch it, because I still think it is very relevant. Companies need to make money. If companies make money, they can do more of what they do, and if they have a purpose to exist other than making money, they can do more of that other thing. Now, so we invest money and time / opinions / help, and for most of our portfolio companies, that is 1-2 hours a week. It's not like we're investing full days, but it'll be in sprints, right? So sometimes we'll look at one thing for 4 hours, and then we won't look at you for a couple of weeks. But I think every investor helps their portfolio companies, especially when you invest like we do, pretty early stage. We're usually the first investor. So you need to help people build a company. And the first time you're building a company, that's scary stuff. You're setting up things. You're maybe hiring some people. You're incorporating or not, or well, you're making all these decisions, and that is what we help with, and then we help you make the product better. It's not philanthropy. We intend to do that truly with with the idea of making money and then reinvesting that money into other things again. And of course, that goes wrong like 9 times out of 10.
Yes. I do agree with that. Early on, you said it's about once you make money, then you can kind of do anything. Feels like you're
Yeah,
teaching someone how to fish. Like they now
yeah,
know how to fish. They're making enough money to pay for their costs, and now they can really
yeah,
add to
and
the world.
it's yeah, and I think I'm also not necessarily the biggest fan of the system of you're doing a round and then
Mm,
raising another round and then raising another
yeah.
round, and because that only works when you're building stuff for like the really really big market, and not everyone is, and that's fine. Um,
Mhm.
and I think we have the added benefit of basically being, well, we only invest our own capital, so we don't have other investors investing into our funds that have to get our money back. So we don't really care if we get our money
Mhm.
back in 2 years or in 10 years. I
Yeah.
I really don't care.
Yeah. That gives you a
Yeah.
lot of flexibility, I'm sure, as an investor. Yeah. What is the argument for working for having an investor for taking raising capital? What is that argument? Because I don't think we hear it enough in the WordPress world.
So we didn't take investment at Yoast, and I will not tell you that everyone should take an investment. That being said, in hindsight, would I have taken investment at Yoast? I would. We probably at some point would have, but it really depends on who's investing and what they can do to help you. The thing is that
Mm,
a lot of the processes that you're going to run into as your company grows bigger are entirely new to you, and you're basically figuring it out all on the fly. You either hire people to help you do that, or you get an investor on board that helps you do that. There's multiple ways around that, I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but sometimes one is too expensive and you can only do the other. Um,
mm,
and I think that investors can also help you with things that you might not even realize that you need. One of the things we had, and we'd been thinking about selling Yoast for a while, so we had run a sales process before COVID, and it broke because of COVID. And because of that, we learned
mm,
when we were selling Yoast the second time to run a proper process with a banker. Now, that is not something that a startup will do on their own easily. We got lucky. I
mhm.
had some friends in the right places, and I found a Dutch banker who was incredible, helped us through the process. Um, and we were big enough to actually find a banker that wanted to help us and could do that, because a lot of those bankers will only take deals above like 10 million or 100 million, or well, so there's thresholds they work in. Um, that sort of thing becomes easier when you have an investor. And
Mhm.
it's also, I think an investor also makes it easier for you to determine whether you want to get out of your business at some point or not.
Mm.
I do think that when you take investment, you have to really, really think about, do I want to get out of this business at some point? And if you don't, which is
And
fine,
and and
pick an
Go
investor
ahead.
that's fine with that too. I mean, we'd be very happy to take like a 10% stake in a company and then take 10% of returns from the company every year for decades if that company is running well.
So I'm just taking some notes here, but is the idea you can structure the deal differently if you do want to get, let's say you want to get an exit in 5 or 10 years? Do you structure the deal differently, or why do you have to think about that early on?
Well, you have to think about that, because if you don't, you might bring investors on board that need to get rid of their money, need to get their money back after a certain point in time. So either you need to buy them out, or something else needs to happen. So they'll look for what they call a liquidity event. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I mean, if you're not ready to think about that yet, that's fine. But then you have to make sure that you get investors that are fine with you keeping your options open.
Yeah, there has to be a liquidity event, which is either, like all the way at the end of the progress is like going public on the stock market. That's the ultimate liquidity event. But there's also other ways. There's other
Yeah, I
stops
think
along the
in
path.
it most of the time it's selling your company to someone bigger.
Correct.
Uh, I hope to invest in something that goes public at some point, but it also looks like a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Yeah, yeah. No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So let me ask you this. So you talked about you didn't take capital at Yoast. What if you did take capital? What do you think would have changed? Would you have gotten bigger? Like instead of going up to 140 people, you would have gotten up to 200 people. Would you have gotten to the same size but faster? Like what would have been the differences if you did take capital?
I don't know whether we have hired that many more people. I think we actually probably hired a bit too many at some point, which is something that maybe an investor could have prevented us from doing. Um, I think we would have gotten bigger. I think we probably would have expanded into other platforms sooner had we had the cash to not make that a big risk. We were very risk averse because it was all our own money, and
Hmm.
we were paying a lot of people's salaries. Um, and you can play a bit more, well, a bit faster if you have cash that is not really bad if you lose it. We've invested in some companies that have not gone well, and then you speak to those founders after, and they're surprised that I'm still friendly with them, and I'm like, we were in this together. I mean, this happens. Businesses fail. It's fine, and I think that is something that, well, the idea that losing a couple $100,000 or euros um, on trying something and then having it fail is not the biggest deal in the world can really change how you run a business. But it's also very scary because it also
Yeah.
I
I
want you to have that
Go ahead.
drive. So it is about finding that, like, yeah, you have to find that equilibrium where you're taking chances, but you're also still thinking about how are we going to turn this into a profitable company every day.
I guess the way I'm thinking about it, and I'm probably also risk averse. I'd rather build something long term, even if it takes us forever to get there. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Like the math doesn't work out. But in my brain, I just want to take the safest route. And I think if I had capital to spend, I might be a little bit more free flowing with the money and try crazier ideas that I wouldn't have tried if it was just my money. So if you're risk averse, it might help you grow. It like might help you overcome your limitations of being a risk adverse person, which is a superpower in some circumstances, but is also a weakness when you really need to get to
Yeah,
profitability.
you need a bit of both, right? So you need to be able to
Uh,
take the risk,
yeah.
but you also like to need to you need to have that gut feel for, hey, I want to do this, and you need to really want to be that entrepreneur. It's it's not necessarily easy, and not everyone needs
Yeah.
investments to do that.
Yep.
But if that makes it easier for you to do it, and then there's so many reasons why it can be very scary. I mean, I can imagine if you have kids, for instance, that it really changes how you look at these things. Marika and I have 4 kids.
Mm.
We know how this works, and we've been raising kids as we were building Yoast. We realize how hard that is, and at the same time, it's also very rewarding.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Amelia Capital. So you built this with Marike, your wife, and can you tell us, like, I guess, how does the company operate? Are there companies that you target for your portfolio? Are you giving people $10,000 or are you giving people $1 million? Like, a lot of people in the WordPress world, including myself, really don't know how this works, especially with tiny software as a service companies as opposed
It's
to the,
hard.
the larger ones.
Yeah. So we don't necessarily target companies; they target us. So they come to us for investment. We get a lot of decks every week where people basically ask for money. I do shows like these to make people aware that they can ask for money, and then
Hmm.
they come to you. That's sort of how it works. Um, We invest somewhere between 25 to 250,000 euros usually in the first go. Where I would probably, for if you're just starting out, it would probably be on the lower end of that. If you're a bit further, it might be a bit on the higher end, where we take anywhere between 10 to 25% of equity. Not much more than that, because I want you to run
Got
your own
it.
company, and we don't want to be the boss.
Yeah.
We very specifically don't want to
Is
be the boss. So you are running your company, and
yeah.
we will help you, and we will advise you, and we will actually test when we're talking about investment whether you would actually listen to what we were what we were saying.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
but um,
Nice.
but we don't want to. Well, it's you who runs the company.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you about that. Okay, so 25,000 to 250,000 euros or dollars. I guess they're close. What do people typically do with that? In my brain, and do you give people advice on what to? We think this is where the money would be
Oh
best
yeah,
spent.
it's not like we only talk to them once, and then I talk to most of those people every week, every other week. So it's
Uh huh.
continuous
Got it.
advice. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of why you take the investment from us. Usually people
Yeah.
can choose, and you choose for an investor that fits you. And we look for that as well. We look
Mm,
for that click. Do we like you? Can we work with you? I'm going to be on a
hmm.
lot of calls with you, or in meetings with you, or at parties, at conferences with you. Do I like that? Do I see that as something, as a good use of my time? Does Marika see that as a good use of her time? Do we think that we can help you? And it's something that you have to do the other way around too. So
Hmm.
that's what people taking the investment have to think about as well. Like, do I want to look at Yoast's head
Yeah.
every day? Uh, um,
Let me re-ask the question in a different way here. I think when I think of, I listen to a lot of tech podcasts about investing, and like with some classic e-commerce brands, especially at the start of the pandemic, people were like, "Oh my God, D2C is exploding! Just launch a product on your own website, everyone's going to buy from you." And I don't know if it was the investors, I don't know if it was the companies, but everyone just like bought paid ads, but they were like never really profitable. It was just the strategy. My bias is that the investor said, use the money to buy as many paid ads as you can to get customers in the door, but they never figured out if it was the right marketing channel. I probably have the fear of a lot of WordPressers of like, I don't want to lose my independence. In my 250 euros, I might be able to hire two incredible top of the line engineers who can solve every product problem we've ever had. And that to me is probably how I'd spend that money, is have an incredible developer, have an incredible designer, make the product the absolute best it can while I figure out all the business stuff. Like, is there that flexibility?
Absolutely. Yeah, and
Hmm.
well, we'll help you with that. But yes,
Hmm.
there is, and I think that's definitely what some of the people that we've invested in have done with that money. Um, we actually have a designer in house as well who can help you a bit. So that,
Hmm.
and we also
Nice.
have a very good developer who I do code reviews of most of the code of our investment portfolio companies with. So we go quite
What?
deep.
Wow.
The thing is, you're valuing a company, which basically usually most of the time isn't really a company yet. So there's a
Hmm.
plugin and there's an idea.
Yeah.
Um, and then, well, you value those assets. But we go quite deep. I mean, it is a close relationship, and we like to be fairly close to them. And yes, we are fine with you hiring a developer, and we'll probably even help you hire one. So
Hmm.
I've done job interviews with the companies we invest in. I
Hmm.
look at
Oh, cool.
resumes. I will refer people to the companies we've invested in. Like, this would be a good hire.
Having a great idea is one important part of raising capital, but you also need business defensibility, which we'll talk about later in this episode. Let me go back to the question of like, why would someone want investment? So let me tell you, my ideal is to make enough money every year that I can have an easy life that's also a rich life. By that I mean, like, let's say I can magically make $200,000 a year. and I only have to work 20, 30 hours a week. That is like the perfect. If I can ever make that happen, I don't want to grow the company anymore, because that means hiring more people, having more overhead, having to deal with more HR just more meetings. Oh my God, meetings. Like, the more people you hire, the more meetings you have. Oh, like, is how do you, I think a lot of investors want unlimited growth. And I think there are some owners who want, hey, I just want to get to this place where I'm comfortable. I'm making whatever your magical salary number is. And I don't want to work 40 hours a week. Maybe I just want to work 30.
I'll be honest.
How do those
If
two
you
balance?
don't want, it's not that we want unlimited growth, because I don't
Right.
necessarily care for that, and I think we are weird in that way because we don't necessarily care about money, which is weird because a lot of this is about money.
Yeah.
But um,
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't really care about money. We care about impact. Which is what we've always cared
Mm.
about at Yoast too. Impact was more important than making money, and that's why there was so many features in Yoast SEO free. When if you were running it as a commercial business, you really wouldn't have done
Mm.
that.
Mm.
There is this thing where if you are just in it to make a certain amount of money so that you can have your life, that's fine. But then probably
Mm.
don't take investment from anyone, because you'll
Okay.
get
Okay.
another voice in your company, and you have to truly listen to
Mm.
that voice,
Mm.
uh, and they will want to grow more. Because if I have 10 or 20% of your company and you make 250K a
Yeah.
year and I've invested, then it takes quite a bit of
Yeah.
time to make that back. Whereas if you grow like
Yeah.
twice
Yeah.
as much, then it makes it a lot less time to make that money back. But if you that so it depends a bit on where you're coming from. Like that 200,000 in revenue a year is probably not enough to take like meaningful investment. But if that becomes like
Mhm.
10 million and you
Yeah.
don't want to grow beyond 10 million, it's fine. There is
Mm.
this
Right.
limit of like, and that sounds like a whole lot. I realize that, but I mean, Yoast was over that,
Mhm.
and there are more
Mhm.
businesses in the WordPress world I know that are over that, and
Mhm.
even at 5 million, your life becomes very different. You're managing people and you're managing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But what I think is actually the most important thing is that you have this other goal that you have for your company, which should be bigger than just making money. Um, what do you want
Mhm.
to achieve? That we help you achieve that. So at Yoast, that was SEO for everyone. If you look at Equalize Digital, one of our
Mm.
investments, they make an accessibility checker. They want to make accessibility better for everyone. They're super passionate about accessibility, and to them too, money is second to accessibility. And that's what we go for. I get excited when people are passionate like that about a topic and want to
Mm.
make something better for the world, the web, whatever. And I think that if that's your drive, then you want to continue doing that. Then we are, well, a good investor, because that's what we really like helping with. Um,
Yeah.
I think most
Nice.
investors will be okay with you saying after a certain point, like, this is big enough for me, but then they'll ask you to leave and
Mm.
put in another CEO.
Yeah. Ah. Okay. Okay. Got it. It's good to know. So I genuinely don't know, like, how many people in the word, and I forgot the I don't think I used the word earlier, but how many people in the WordPress world want a lifestyle business, and how many people, I genuinely have no idea. I wish I understood that dynamic a little bit better. But you know what? People in this podcast probably skew a little bit more towards growth and growing a much bigger business than people
The
who are just
annoying
interested
thing
in a lifestyle
about
business.
making
Probably.
money is also that if you make
Mhm.
200K a year, you'll end up thinking, I could do it a bit more.
That's true. Every time my salary's increased, I'm like, well,
Yeah,
where'd that
and
money
it's also like
go? Yes,
200K in the
yes.
especially in the US, is not what it was
Uh-huh,
10 years ago.
uh-huh,
So there,
uh-huh.
I mean, these things grow, but I think that you have to be honest about what do I want to achieve with my company when you take investment. So you have to have a
Mm.
like a longer term idea for what your company needs to be.
Let me dig into that. And sorry, one quick thing first. Actually, at my day job right now, we're actually working with Equalize Digital. So I just wanted to give you a kudos and a little pat on the back. They are awesome at accessibility. They found a, I mean, not good for me. They found a ton of issues on the website that I now need to fix. But they're very good at finding those accessibility
They are
issues. So
rock
I
stars of
I assume it's money
accessibility. I
well spent.
really like what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, do you invest in anyone that doesn't have a big idea? It's just like, hey, I found this plugin, it makes money. Do you work with people to refine their vision, or do they need to have that vision before they come to you?
I think we'd like to help you refine it, but we'd have to see that it makes the world better already before we start doing
Uh,
that. Um, I mean, investing in large part, especially if you're as early stage as we are, is also investing in the people, the founder. Do you
right.
trust the founder or the founders to do the right thing? Do you think that they can handle it? Do you think that they can grow? And so, yeah, we'll try and help them. And I actually really like helping them, but it's also like
Hmm.
they also have to be open to listening and to, well, sometimes very harsh feedback when you say, hey, you've built this nice website. I really don't understand what you're writing on there, which is funny, but that a lot of what we do is feedback like that. Like, yeah, your story's too hard. Make it easier to tell.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of marketing, a lot of me going through code and seeing that a single developer has worked on code and going like, yeah, this is fun. Um, Please start using WPCS. Start documenting your code. Start making sure that if we hire another developer, it's not going to take them 3 years to figure out what this code base does. Um,
yes.
it's that
Yes.
sort of thing that you don't necessarily think about in the beginning,
Hmm.
where we'll help.
So you mentioned investing in the founder. What are the qualities that you want to see in a founder? Do they need to be an excellent public speaker who actually are you sorry, are you also interested in people who want to raise more capital beyond? I kind of assume yes.
Yeah, in fact, I'll help them if we
Okay.
can. Um,
Oh,
um,
nice.
we don't
And what
care
are you
about
looking for
public
in a founder?
speaking
Uh,
necessarily. I mean, what's
Uh-huh.
important to me is that you can reflect on what you've been doing so far and then improve. The willingness to learn and grow is probably the most important thing for an entrepreneur, because they're in the beginning you're there with a couple of people. Then you get an investment, you hire a few people, you need to start managing other people, you need to do things that you might not have done before. And then if it goes well, you'll be hiring more people, and you'll not be managing just a few people, but you'll be managing dozens of people, which really changes your life. And
Mhm.
you need to grow along with that, and be okay with that, and then figure out like, hey, what's the best role of these people within this company, and are they best suited to be the CEO, or should they be the CPO, or what? I mean, one of the things we did at Yoast was that I stepped back at a certain point from the CEO role and became the chief product, because I'm better at product and code than I am at managing an entire company of 100 plus people. And Marika was better at creating company culture and doing all those things. So there, what we look for, I think most, well, we look for a good idea which we believe
Mhm.
really helps the world in some way. We look for some defensibility, so something that allows you
Mhm.
to say, hey, we've built this and not someone else can come in and copy this in 2 days, which is getting harder because AI makes it pretty
Yep.
easy to copy things. But defensibility can also be brand. I mean, at Yoast, I think a large part of why Yoast is still very popular when RankMath is still around, which is a copy of Yoast, is because the brand is better. And
Mhm.
so there are things you can do to make it defensible, but that's what we look for. And then we look at like, hey, are these founders the people that can do this, and do they have the team that is needed to do this? So if you say, hey, I'm going to figure out the business side of things, and you're not a developer yourself, which happens a lot, then I will often urge you to find a technical co-founder, because I want a developer with skin in the game to be in it, because otherwise it's going to be hard to run a technical startup.
Yeah. I'm stuck on the founder. My brain is stuck on the founder. You said you want to know that the founder has the ability to reflect on what they've done so far and improve. And to me, that sounds like self-awareness. And that seems like not impossible, very hard to judge if someone is self-aware and they can to me, it's like looking at yourself from above and going, oh, that wasn't a good move, Patrick. And there's a lot of people who don't seem to have that
No, but
ability.
it becomes pretty clear when we were in like one of the first calls with you, and we'll give you some feedback, and then we see how you deal with it. And
got it.
And if you and I will probably already tell you some things that you should do better, or Marika will do that, and then we look at, hey, are they taking this to heart? What are they doing with this? Or are they coming back to us and saying, hey, you said this and that, can you help me work through that? Or you said this and that, but I disagree because, and I mean, we're not always right. And I don't care whether you say that I'm right and do it, or whether you come back to me and say, hey, you said this, I didn't do, but I want you to think about it and reflect and grow.
So you know what, Yoast, I will disagree with you respectfully here. I don't know if I can. I don't know. Maybe I don't have the skills to judge if someone is that self-aware. That
I'm not saying we're doing this perfectly 100% right all the time. We're definitely not.
Near the end of the show, we're going to get into what Yoast could have done better. And in short, do more and do it faster. Stick around for those details. To me, when you hire someone in general for any business, you're judging their judgment. And that's a really hard, whatever they're good at, whatever you're hiring them to do, it's your judgment, their judgment that you're hiring. It's really hard to figure out if someone has good judgment. And it feels like it just takes a long period of time to figure that out. Or
hiring is hard. Don't get me wrong, and this is not dissimilar. I agree. We've hired more than 100 people at Yoast.
Yeah,
it's a trick that you do get better at, I think, and it's also like sometimes it takes a bit more time. Investments are not like a 20-second decision.
Let me ask about business stage, right? So there's different stages of your business. If someone's open to investment at some point, at what point should people reach out to either you or a different investment company?
Or before or after.
No, okay, yeah. You're pretty open. There's no right time or wrong time to reach out?
When it works for you. And then sometimes we might say it's a bit too late, or the valuation you want is too high for us.
So you've had this awesome journey at Yoast, making, I guess I would call it essential infrastructure for a WordPress site, is which basically what you've made, which is incredible. And now you've sold that, and now you're an investor. Looking back at that decade plus of experience, what advice would you give yourself and other creators?
Move faster.
Move faster. Tell me more.
I should definitely have made a premium Yoast SEO premium faster. We had more ideas for other stuff, which we should have moved faster on. I think one of the problems of the WordPress ecosystem is that we look inwards a lot, and outside of us, the world is changing. So outside of us, Shopify and others have built products that are actually fairly cool. They are out developing us in some of those areas. And I think the entire ecosystem needs to speed up and needs to build better and more product faster.
Yeah, I love that. Here's one of my crazy business ideas. You'll probably tell me how this is wrong, but in my mind, the faster you go, the more likely you are to succeed, because you'll find those mistakes faster and fix them faster.
That's the agile mindset, right? And also very much the open source mindset is release early, release often, and just continue going. I think that works. To a degree. So sometimes you might want to polish a bit before you do your first release, and then you do early release often after that. Well, time to market is not a new concept. This is a fairly old concept where people in the 80s were already very much about time to market. And I think it's not something that's gone away. Just like marketing has not changed in the last 100 years. The platforms have changed, but people essentially in how to respond to things have not changed all that much. What is important is that you move fast on things that matter. If I can urge everyone listening to this to do one thing, it's to build something that does more than just make money. If it has a bigger goal than just making money, it's probably going to sustain you a lot longer.
Yeah, I can definitely say anytime someone's reached out and said, "Wow, Patrick, this has been really helpful," or something like that, like when you're genuinely adding a lot of value in the world, that it feels good.
I mean, the fact that Yoast SEO runs on millions of sites is something I'll always be happy with.
Love that. Yoast, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your incredible insights.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed Yoast's insights, please hit like and subscribe so that we can continue to bring on influential guests onto the show to share their knowledge, experiences, and expertise. If you're more of a social kind of person, then we'd appreciate it if you share this episode on your social channels to get the word out about the content we're creating for entrepreneurs like you. If you're looking for early bird access, please visit Plugin.fm's website if you're not already on it, and click on the subscribe button to find out who and what's to come before anyone else. Plugin.fm is brought to you by Freemius, your all-in-one payment subscription taxes platform for selling software plugins, themes, and software as a service. If you're struggling to grow your software revenue, send a note to contact@freemius.com to get free advice from Freemius's monetization experts. My name is Patrick Rollins, and thanks for listening to Plugin.fm.